Welcome to The Bestie Perspective, a raw, unfiltered space where we explore the mind-body-spirit connection. Every week, we dive into personal growth, holistic healing, and life's ups and downs to inspire, support, and remind you you're never alone on this journey. Hey besties, we're hopping on here today with a bonus episode to jump on the bandwagon of what everybody has been talking about since September 10th, and that's the Charlie Kirk assassination. Whether you loved him, whether you hated him, whether you never knew who Charlie was until this past week, it seems like regardless of where everybody stands, everybody has an opinion. I'm sure you ladies have seen the swirling videos and posts on social media, and I'd love to know your take on some things. Now, we're actually taking a pretty neutral stance in this conversation and won't be trying to shift our listeners in a certain direction. There's already enough of that out there. So as I bring things up, I encourage you ladies and our listeners to listen with an open mind and challenge yourself to seek connection as human beings. This isn't an easy ask, and I'm completely aware of this. To be honest, over the years, I've just personally been inspired by different forms of holy text, and many religious and spiritual traditions across the world include teachings that encourage compassion, forgiveness, or even love towards one's enemies. While the exact wording and emphasis differ, the principle of transcending hatred and promoting reconciliation is widespread. Today, let's embody this as we navigate the controversial topic of Charlie Kirk. But let's jump away from Charlie Kirk specifically for a moment, because I want to ask, ladies, do you think people jump the gun and have this hyper reactivity when it comes to things going viral on the internet?
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, I'm right there with y'all. I really don't think we take enough time to process before reacting in society as a whole. And I myself am guilty of jumping to conclusions, letting emotions overtake me, getting in arguments when I was much younger, and thinking more about my right to feel, my right to say, my right to do certain things rather than pause and explore the hurt I could cause, the pain and damage I could create. And I think as I've matured, that's been a more frequent assessment of myself. So much so that I more often turn to intimate conversations about the subject rather than blast something on social media. I personally just don't get as much out of it online compared to when I can feel the person in the room, see their facial expressions, and recognize them as a human being. Have you guys kind of experienced this as you've grown?
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like it's so easy to succumb to your emotions especially when we're younger. Kids for sure.
Right.
But even growing up and learning how to navigate through emotions and reactivity and things, I mean, there are still certain things that I'm working on myself, but I definitely think there's a different awareness now, for sure. And when observing, again, people jumping on things viral on the internet, it really feels sometimes that they took absolutely no pause, no moment to sit and consider even all the potential consequences of what they're saying.
Sure.
That think about how many times we have said something in the heat of a moment in an argument.
Right.
And then an hour later, we're like, oh shit, that is not what I meant, and
right. Or you witness the damage that you've done to someone and you're like,
backpedal.
Yeah. It's not my best look.
Yeah. And social media, I think, is so much more permanent. And I'm with you in that I also like a more intimate conversation about controversial topics. And I think that's also because I am totally willing to hear all sides and even different views than mine, but I want to hear them from somebody who's also willing and open to hear mine, to really have a genuinely open dialogue and be open to the fact that we could have our minds changed or our beliefs changed.
And I just like a hidden agenda to convert you to their side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, where I just feel like sharing on the internet in this hyper reactive way isn't about common understanding.
Yeah.
Or connection, as you put it earlier. It's just, I want to share my thoughts in this exact moment, not giving a regard for
word vomit.
Anyone. Yeah. Where I know me personally, I appreciate a good juicy conversation and I want to be challenged. I definitely don't know everything and I'm happy to have my mind changed.
Nice.
I also feel like on one end, people might see it as a positive thing to be hyper reactive. Like, for example,
true.
If you really care and are passionate about your viewpoints and your beliefs, you feel like you're doing a service of putting back-to-back 10, 20 story posts or
right.
Or like permanent posts on your timeline. And that shows your care and that's how you're showing up and being there for the cause or for the belief, but not to say that that's you being like emotionally reactive, but I feel like that is a form of being reactive to whatever is going on, whatever news. And then you just blast it on yours with the reposts.
Yeah.
And then you're like going out to look to see, okay, well, who's not posting about it or who's posting about something different than me and let me go unfollow them. I feel like those are some other forms of reactivity, hyper reactivity.
Yeah, definitely. And we're seeing all of them right now. So let's do a little bio and background on the man causing all this hyper reactivity right now. And
I didn't even know who he was before all of this.
I didn't either.
No, that's perfect. I
didn't
You
either.
guys are not alone. I had seen him on my feed here and there on different platforms, but this is why I was thinking, we don't have to get into his opinions and stances. Let's give some background on what he's done. So, Charlie Kirk was a 31-year-old conservative activist that grew a large social media presence through interviews, podcast episodes, but overall, his willingness to debate everyone and anyone, particularly setting up a tent and inviting debate on college campuses and universities, drawing a large crowd of students, hence the setup and location of the shooting at Utah Valley University. So a little bit of a timeline here. In 2012, that would have been soon after high school for him at age 18, he co-founded Turning Point USA with Bill Montgomery, and the organization's purpose was to build a conservative youth presence on college campuses. In 2014, Turning Point begins to develop more visible, quote-unquote, viral social media campaigns, begins influencing student government elections and campus activism. And in 2016, Charlie Kirk is a speaker of the Republican National Convention. Obviously, then that makes him look more like a national figure. And that's like, what? He's 22?
Wow.
I think 24-ish, early 20s.
He would have been like 20s.
To early 20s. So it's...
No, wait. He's 2 years older than me and Lauren. So in 2016, he would have been 20.
That's crazy, isn't it? So 22-ish, right? Anyway, we're not doing our math very well, guys. Sorry.
Early 20s.
There we go.
Yeah.
So then over some years, Turning Point USA chapter spread. He starts raising more sums, gaining donors, all the things. And he starts growing youth conservative activism. By 2018, he's named in Forbes. He reaches Forbes magazine in Forbes 30 Under 30. That obviously gives him more recognition. And then by 2020, his launch and expansion of The Charlie Kirk Show, his podcast, that becomes a major platform. And then he starts doing things like Students for Trump and becoming active during the 2020 Trump campaign. And then by 2023, he is publicly recognized as a millionaire at the age of 29. So now we know people define success differently. And yet many might say that success includes financial freedom and a loving family, let's say. He was a millionaire. He accomplished all of these personal goals of his. He had a wife and child by the age of Hannah and Lauren, who are also 29. So, ladies, aside from his viewpoints or promoting things you may or may not agree with, could you possibly admire, or could you see how someone else might admire his success and achievement, at least for as young as he was?
Oh, for sure. I
The
mean,
man did a lot.
Right.
yeah,
I did
it's
not know he did all
very young too.
Exactly. I'm thinking back when
Yeah.
I was 18, even 22, 20, like, even if I was in college and stuff, I feel like I wasn't doing all that.
Yeah, same. And even now, it's like, dang, he was recognized as a millionaire at 29. Let that be me at 29, please.
Right. Yeah. He had a lot of accomplishments under his belt, which probably helped him be really recognized also. But like, yeah, the man had a lot of stuff under his belt by the time he went.
And I'm sure, let's turn to talk about what we're all seeing. Posts on all platforms, as I've seen on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And I was actually planning on reviewing some posts with you ladies today, but I actually didn't want to spend much time on this as I originally thought. There was such a mix of polarizing posts regarding Charlie Kirk where we could honestly spend all day reading them. But I will talk about one specific one that stood out, keeping the person anonymous. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the post because I think it's worth sharing. And this person posted actually a picture of a conversation that they must have had with someone, and the text of this is really, really worth sharing. So it says, one thing that has become really clear since yesterday is that we live in at least two different realities. Talking to a friend who only knew Charlie as a Christian motivational speaker because that's all that ever came across her feed, showed me videos I've never seen before of him saying perfectly reasonable and empowering things. I showed her videos she'd never seen before of his racism, misogyny, homophobia, advocating for violence against specific groups of people. She was horrified by his remarks about Pelosi's husband's attacker being bailed out and celebrated for his violent act. She was horrified by a number of things that he said, but she had never seen or heard them before. The same as I had never seen or heard the generalized clips of him sounding like a perfectly nice, loving man and father. Neither of us had the whole picture of this man. I mentioned he was a known white supremacist, and she thought I was joking. She talked about him giving a speech about finding your purpose and doing good in the world, and I thought she was joking. That's so interesting, and I think the
Wow.
way that this person ended this post, I love what she said. She said, next time there's a politician or anything that you find triggering that makes you feel hate and angst in your body, put the phone down. Shut the news off. Look at the sky and breathe. Don't believe everything you see. There's always another side. There's always blind spots. We are one. And I was like, okay, this was a good one. Worth
Snaps,
sharing.
girl.
Right?
Yes.
Preach it. Preach it. But that made me question, can we really judge the either side when neither is getting the full picture? Because we're not seeing it's just about Charlie Kirk. Now these posts are, if you support Charlie Kirk, or if you hate Charlie Kirk, you're brainwashed. It's like, now it's if you believe this or that, it's now growing. And this brings up the illusions that algorithms can create, keeping someone in a completely different reality than your next door neighbor, right?
Oh yeah. I think it's really wild to hear in that specific post. I mean, it was 180 opposite, completely
Exactly.
opposite that they were getting from each other. And it's honestly a scary thought. But it also makes sense in like just quite how polarizing the posts are. Because now even seeing this, again, for somebody getting all the good, you could see why they're standing so much in the good. And for somebody getting all the bad, you could see why they're standing so much in the bad. And are there any people getting both?
I like intentionally like curate my feed with both. So I feel like
yes, I am getting both too. So, but I feel like that speaks for us because we're ones to always want to be open and curious about both sides, right?
Yeah, it's just mind-blowing. I'm really shocked. I mean, of course, I could see how that's a thing, but it is crazy because I think a lot of people, like you're saying, don't really realize quite to the extent that it is.
Yeah.
And what we're being fed on our feeds.
It's kind of funny to think, how is this person even thinking about this way? Why would they? And then if you hear this post, it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. they're getting fed one side, right? So I thought that kind of just explained why we are possibly seeing just two sides of the coin and both sides being very, very charged.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
I just had a vision of like when we say feed and like literally being fed stuff because of algorithms and who knows what other forces we don't know about at play. I think about someone on a tube feed.
Oh,
I don't know why. like in a sense, they're kind of just oftentimes people who are in that state are more dependent in their care, but like they don't play an active role in feeding themselves for one, but like, yeah, that was a random thought. And I was just thinking like, man, what if they're getting fed like, what if someone's putting some alcohol in their tube feed and like mixing up their mind a little bit?
I'm just munching on some.
It's really out of your control.
Getting fed some hate over here. Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah.
A little bit of hatred. Sprinkle it with some anger.
What you're saying, Hannah, though, now I'm picturing it turning into one of those comic pictures, and not comic haha necessarily, but an illustration.
Like a comic strip.
But like even if it's just one picture or one illustration, but seeing a person, like a sketched cartoon of a person in a hospital bed, but then they have a tube feed, and again, there's like hate, like you're saying, and good things, right? But then but it's behind them. And they don't know what they're getting, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like putting together this conversation and what you're saying, Hannah. It's like, now I have this image in my mind, and I'm actually like, wow, that would be quite the powerful image of we don't necessarily see. And when we're just sucked into the scrolling on our phone, it's like being on a tube feeding and just getting whatever is given.
You're getting fed. Yeah.
I'm loving the imagery, ladies. Thanks.
You started it, Hannah.
Been trying to embrace that part of me more.
So, people of the Democratic Party, obviously opposite of Charlie Kirk being Republican, they're bringing up the point that other politician deaths and attacks are not being talked about. In other words, saying Democrats are being bypassed. We have even Nancy Pelosi's husband, this was back in 2022. He was attacked with a hammer by an intruder in his home in San Francisco, surviving skull fractures, arm and hand fractures. But I believe the case is still ongoing. He's had multiple surgeries. Like, it was pretty bad. Then we have, then next was Senator Hoffman, John Hoffman, and Melissa Hortman. These are both in Minnesota. But John Hoffman, his intruder shot him 9 times, his wife 8 times. And then Melissa Hoffman shot her and her husband. Both died. So very intense, seemingly still. So it made me ask, why is Charlie Kirk's story going more viral? And I had some points, so I want you ladies to think about if you agree or if you want to add why you think this might be. But number one is, I'm going to be completely honest, my experience has been that the narrative of the party in office does get pushed. This is just what I have seen from even my childhood and hearing my parents' conversations and what's being talked about in the house, whether it was George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Obama, Trump. It always seemed to me that whatever the party that was holding office got more say. Now, you have different news programs that highlight what they want to highlight, but the overall conversations seemed to be based on who had control. Number two, I'm thinking that it's because it was in front of a big crowd and you've got 3,000 people running and screaming because they don't know if there's another shot that's going to be sent out. You've got people going live on TikTok while they're at the seam. You've got a big to do in front of a lot of people. What's the news going to do? It's going to go for the drama, right? It's got to go for the biggest headline. What's going to induce the most reaction? And then my third theory is that Charlie Kirk's social media presence versus these other politicians was probably much bigger. I don't know if Hoffman and Hortman were really, really big on social media, but I do not believe so. I think that Charlie's been on all platforms. That's where he's pumped his content. And right now in today's age, I mean, that's where things go viral. That's where stuff explodes. So why do you ladies think Charlie Kirk's story is going viral while these other ones are not?
I feel like you hit the nail on the head, honestly. I think even hearing you share your point, I'm like, yeah, I really think it's because it, again, like you said, big event,
Right.
Lots of people, lots of phones, lots of multiple recording and angles recorded and people's experiences. And also, like you said, with his social media presence, he's 31, right? A lot of people in our generation are on social media and would be the ones to blow it up. And it's on a college campus.
Right.
So it just feels like it all happened in a crowd that goes viral more than the generations older than it.
Yeah.
Even just generationally. And because he's young, I think that maybe has to do with it too. Not that I'm not trying to say that one's age determines how important or not important a death is, but I think society as a whole seems to react a lot more to younger deaths.
Sure.
Than older deaths. So I think what you mentioned with the crowd and the drama and the social media presence, but also potentially his age, that he was this young activist.
Yeah.
Right. And he had a young family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Again, with the drama. Go for the drama.
Exactly right. So it begged me to ask the question, what did Charlie Kirk believe that we three besties would agree with him on? I had seen such divide. I was like, can we find something here? And the first thing, I could have probably spent more time. I just went with the first two things that I could connect us to and that popped up and was like, yeah, this is good. So the first was how he practices the Sabbath. So he would do a full 24-hour technology detox on a weekly basis. He puts his phone away and he's present with his wife and children. Now, for him, it had religious significance in that God rested after creation and he believed, and I quote, "To our own detriment, to our own failure, we as Christians have decided to cast away resting on one of the 7 days." He said, if you're feeling overrun by society, you may be feeling depressed or anxious, here's one way that you might be able to improve. Turn your phone off for 1 day. No contact, no social media, no work. Your mental health will improve dramatically. So I was like, well, I've heard this before. Sounds familiar. We've promoted this. We've talked about it in our technology-related episodes. Then the next one that I spotted was his healthcare perspective. So he was aware of the difference between chronic and acute. And I fell upon another video where he says, quote, "We have the best acute healthcare in the world." He goes on to say, "We're really good at solving heart attacks." In other words, we're great at handling emergencies, which is exactly what we said in our hospital versus holistic episode. He believed we have the worst chronic health care. He had mentioned lupus, autoimmune, diabetes, that when it comes to these more chronic conditions, it takes more holistic, more naturopathic solutions. He says, quote, "Right now there is a chronic disease epidemic where they're treating obesity, type 2 diabetes, etc., like an acute problem. Every doctor, if they can't fix it in 12 hours or less, it's not my problem. Here's a bunch of pills. Just keep yourself happy," end quote.
Just keep yourself happy. That makes me giggle.
But he says, "I think we need a whole lifestyle change of how we view healthcare in this country." And I'm over here like, heck yeah, preach, right? So what do you ladies think about the fact that we approve of his practice of putting down the phone and his healthcare views? You want to speak on both? What are your thoughts?
I just think it goes to show that there's a chance that even if you don't totally agree with someone on like their whole life, their beliefs and whatever they come from, like you can usually find some type of common ground with people, even if their life looks totally different from yours.
Yeah, I'm with you on that point. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to zoom out, right? When these kind of situations happen, that happened with Charlie Kirk, it's so zoomed in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and I think this is a great practice, and hopefully our listeners do this as well, but zooming out and saying, oh yeah, we talk about doing tech detoxes. That aligns with what we believe, and rest and just being present with your loved ones.
Yeah.
But also the healthcare perspective. I know all three of us are very holistic, but we also know the place that Western and conventional medicine has. So I think it's a healthy practice to do what you just laid out here, to zoom out and say, like you mentioned from the beginning, where can we find that human connection?
Yes.
Where can we find that similarity? Because even though you could have somebody you completely disagree with, it feels impossible to think that there is not one thing that you could find common ground on.
Yeah.
So I just think that doing what you just did is a healthy practice that we should all be doing, and not just for these controversial viral situations, but, you know, a boss that we disagree with, a coworker that we hate, a mother or father-in-law that we don't get along with. I think it's a healthy perspective to take, to zoom out and just look at where you can find that human connection and common ground.
Very well said. Thank you both. And so, how to cope with social media drama, headline stress disorder, that's not a real disease, and news-induced anxiety. But before I get into some suggestions, and Hannah, I was thinking about you, maybe because it might feel different now being in another country and somewhat removed, even though you have friends and family here. But yeah, tell us, what do you ladies do for yourselves? What do you or don't you do when headline hype is buzzing?
Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind immediately. Like you mentioned earlier, sometimes you just have to put the phone down, like your friend said on the Facebook post, and just look up at the sky and take a deep breath and remember that there's a whole world outside of the screen and what's going on. And I also remember that there was a time where humans were not that plugged in and aware of stressful situations like this, worldwide, nationwide, even statewide. Like you'd probably have to wait for the horse and carriage handwritten letter mail to be delivered to you.
The pigeon.
Right? Like their worries back then were totally different. And Like, that's literally stuff I think about when I take a deep breath. I'm like, this is a lot to hold. Like literally you can feel the tension in your body and your chest sometimes. And so I think just taking a step back, and what your friend said is a perfect practice. And I also something I don't do is unfriend people that have posted something that emotionally triggers me. I don't curate my timeline to be like politically biased within reason. I use my good judgment, but I don't try to shield myself completely. Like, I allow myself to kind of expand and like be able to hold more, but I also give myself those breaks, like I was saying.
Nice.
I appreciate other people's opinions.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. What do you do, Lauren?
Yeah, I say definitely big advocate for the breaks thing. Honestly, I think I actually find myself, and this recent scenario is a good option, when things are buzzing to the level that they're buzzing right now, I don't go on social media as much at all. Like in the last week, I have not been on social media as much. And I think it's because I have curated my feed in general to be very positive for what I get when I go on social media, but it feels like the negativity still gets through when a really big thing happens. And so I think it's just a natural reaction of mine to just create that distance. But I also, even reflecting on situations that have maybe triggered me in the past, I really find myself trying to come back to center within myself, because when we're looking at social media and we're seeing all this craziness happening in our own country or around the world or whatever it may be, it's so easy to feel like you have no control over what's happening. And so something that I practice is really tuning into myself and realizing that I have the power to control how I respond, how I react, how I even interpret these things going on. And tuning into that energy, one, helps center me, but also it gives me control in a time when it feels like there might not be a lot. So I find myself turning inward, I would say, is probably the main umbrella, is turning inward during a lot of this and creating that separation from all the negative comments, news, whatever it might be.
Yeah. These are great. You both are already practicing some great strategies. So good on you. Good on you, ladies.
Yay!
So just to see, and you guys may already be doing some of these, but some practical strategies to reduce news-related anxiety aren't that far off from the ones we've talked about where people may need to step away from technology. The first one is set time limits. Set a daily cap or use tools like a screen time tracker, app limits to help. But also avoid consuming news first thing in the morning and last thing at night. I feel like that really just like soaks in and defines your day, and then it can even just settle into your night and set you up for a mood in the morning. So,
or a rough night's sleep.
Well, very true. Yeah, depending on how captivating what you're reading is. Yeah. Number 2 is choose your sources carefully. We've talked about this. Stick to factual, balanced news outlets. Maybe some people are like, there aren't any. I don't know. But avoid clickbait headlines. You can avoid outrage-driven commentary. If you start reading and you're feeling some kind of way, you can just stop. Avoid social media arguments. You could even consider reading print or summaries rather than watching emotional video footage. There's been a lot of people that are like, I kind of wish I didn't see the actual assassination. Or there's been other very horrific things even just before this in the news that are just people want to go look up the video because it's curiosity, but is it really good for you? Is it good for your spirit to see that? So, number 3 is practice news fasting, which I think is good, especially if you can't, as we've suggested in other episodes, fast from your phone or technology, maybe because your job depends on it, for instance. So, take intentional breaks from the news, whether it's a day, a weekend, or a full week, and use that time for uplifting media, hobbies, social connection instead. Next, limit social media exposure. The thing is with all these social platforms is they often amplify negative content. They encourage doom scrolling. We've talked about this, curate your feed, unfollow the toxic accounts, turn off the push notifications. As Lauren has said she's done, put that distance. Number 5, stay physically and mentally grounded. This is going to help you stay in the present. Go for a walk, go exercise, cook, clean. You don't have to stay present by being mindful or tapping into that, but you could. You could try mindfulness, deep breathing, short guided meditations. After consuming heavy news, sometimes that's good for the mind to just help you recenter and ground. Number 6, switch to action-based thinking. And I think this is great for the point you were making, Lauren, about feeling helpless or not having control. And so if the news is making you feel helpless, take small constructive actions. Bring yourself back to what you do have power over. And if it is involving the actual controversy, you could donate, volunteer, contact reps, educate others. That's fine. But as long as you're feeling proactive, that's often going to reduce emotional distress. And then lastly, talk about it, but not constantly. And I think it's how you talk about it. Share your feelings with a friend or therapist, having that heart-to-heart, but avoid looping conversations that just rehash the distressing story. If it's causing anxiety, you don't want to go around, did you hear about Charlie Kirk? Did you hear about Charlie Kirk? Did you hear about Charlie Kirk? Right? Having intentional conversations, right?
Yeah.
So I think overall it's a mindset shift. Curate, don't cut out. You don't need to cut off from the world. You just need to curate how, when, and how much you engage with it. And so, ladies, we've had several discussions with these points on social media, phone use, etc. So I'm sure this all feels familiar. Is there anything either of you would like to add?
Maybe just something to add, just to reemphasize, is what we just talked about a little earlier, but that practice of zooming out.
Yeah.
Even, if you feel like a situation is stressing you out, zoom out a little bit. See if you can pick up different pieces of humanity that's there.
Yeah.
And almost make it a game, to challenge yourself in that way. But maybe that's just something I would add to encourage all of us to keep open minds and, to look more for human connection and humanity instead of just all the ugly bits.
I like that. Because also I think when you're zoomed in, you're ready to take anything personal, right?
Yeah.
So zoom in out.
Yeah.
I like that. Everybody, let's zoom out.
Yes. Yes.
And this is kind of unrelated, but it's such a perfect time to share. I follow this wonderful person on Instagram. I think her name is Carly, and her Instagram hashtag is the wellbeing scientist _. And she has a post on her main feed. You can see it titled, "I'm a shitty influencer, and perhaps that's a good thing." And it's subtitled as "An imperfect manifesto for slower, more honest influence." So I just wanted to read like, I just wanted to quote her on this. In the manifesto, she's answering the question, do we use social media to expand our worldview or to defend it? And she goes on to say, I've learned what travels the fastest online isn't nuance or truth. It's a loud certainty that drowns out quiet honesty. And if you aren't delivering your take like it's carved in stone, you risk being ignored or attacked, or even put on the list somewhere on the internet in the hands of folks with ill intention. The more polarized things become, the more dangerous it feels to admit you're unsure, that you're still learning, or that you see complexity where others want black and white. Posts aren't conversations anymore. They're shields or weapons, depending on which side you stand. Every caption and every story and every video is treated like a test of loyalty. Are you with us or against us? What would it look like if we just let ourselves linger in the messiness of truth instead of rushing to defend our side?
So good.
It was so
good.
good.
So good. So good.
There's just so many things that it ties into right now. So
It unpacks a
had to
lot.
share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I hope it hits people listening. And if
Mhm.
you guys missed it, rewind and listen again.
Yeah, or go directly to her page and listen to
Yeah.
it. She's I like her stuff. So
That's great. Just the weaponizing of posts. That's such a great way of putting it, with it being so charged out there right now. And it does seem like everyone's ready to, the fists are up, they're out and they're ready to strike. And so I just love that. That was
Yeah.
beautifully put. I think she did a really good job with that post.
me too.
Mm-hmm.
A real life example of that, just to tie it back in, is it's very common on my feed. I've seen multiple people say, I saw you post about this, but where were you when you didn't post about this? I'm noticing.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm watching. And it makes me feel like, yeah, every caption, video, story is treated like a test of loyalty. Are you with us? Are you
Yeah.
against us? Like, that's when that part hit. And I was like, dude, it's so much deeper than that. Like you were saying, it's so much more worth it. And I feel like you grow and get so much more out of having conversations with people, not just nitpicking and cherry picking the social media things that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A perfect segue into getting along with people who have different beliefs, because this is more about having those kind of conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And look, let's be honest, it is a good skill to have no matter who you are. As Lauren said, you could be disagreeing with your boss. You could really not like your coworkers. You could have in-laws that just have those strong opposing beliefs, whether it's political, religious, cultural. It can be challenging to get along with a person that differs from you, but very possible. My belief is that it takes 3 things to do so. I think it takes emotional awareness, communication skills, and intentional boundaries. Now, I think these 3 things are things you work on yourself as an individual. But here's a set of actionable tips that actually work. The first is shift your goal from winning to understanding. Don't aim to change their mind or prove them wrong. Aim to understand where they're coming from, even if you disagree. You could ask yourself what values or fears might be behind their belief. I feel like just setting it up that way, it's going to feel so much better. I do feel like people can tell when you are ready to try and change their mind, right? Versus, I'm here to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is ask questions. Don't just make points. This is where Hannah's talking about more of a conversation. Use curious, open-ended questions. What led you to feel this way? How did you come to that conclusion? It shows respect, it lowers defensiveness, and it opens dialogue. Next, listen to learn, not to react. Kind of similar, but you don't just wait for your turn to speak. You don't really care what they're saying. You don't really hear it. You should listen fully, not to agree, but to see the full picture of their perspective. You could even try repeating back what they said in your own words. They will feel heard.
That reminds me of the saying that my mom used to tell me as a kid to help me learn this skill of empathy was to put yourself in other people's shoes and like really listen to them, see where they're coming from. If you're having a disagreement or, not getting along with them.
Yeah, I have heard that. I think it's good to have some actual things to practice. Put yourself in someone else's shoes as a kid. You're going to go find their sneakers and try to put them on. That's not what we're saying.
And it's like listening versus hearing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the next one I think everybody needs to work on right now from all the posts that I'd seen. Number 4 is manage emotional triggers. And you do that by noticing your own body cues. Are you tense? Are you clenching? Are you shallow breathing? And if you are experiencing something, take breaks if needed. And try not to personalize their beliefs as an attack on you. That's kind of the Lauren's like zoom out technique. You don't personalize it as an attack on you, as someone just stating their belief. You can react in a less aggressive way. Number 5 is common ground. Hey, we did it today with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk. We did it today with Charlie Kirk. It's agree on shared values, family, safety, fairness, health, freedom. If you start conversations there, it creates connection and lowers tension. Number 6 is respect boundaries, theirs and yours. And with this, it's honestly okay to say some conversations just don't need to happen. It's okay to say, I value our relationship too much to argue about this right now. Let's agree to disagree on this one. Number 7 is lead with your humanity, not just your opinion. How would you do that? Use I statements. I feel uncomfortable when, or I've experienced it differently. And then talk about your story, not just your stance. Talk about how you got to your opinion. And then last, the suggestion is don't debate on social media. Sure, I think it's possible to have a harmonious debate on social media, but conversations are almost always less productive and more polarizing online. Keep real dialogue in real life or private one-on-one. And I even said in the very beginning that that's what I prefer now. So anything to add, ladies, or are any of these sticking out to you?
One that sticks out to me in particular is number 4, when you talk about managing emotional triggers and trying not to personalize their beliefs as an attack on you. It just so reminds me of the role that politics can play in being a part of somebody's identity.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're speaking of like identity and consciousness and all of these things, identity is essentially just everything of your life experiences that contribute, like your beliefs, your everything, the traumas, anything you can think of, your career, if you're a mom, a parent, all of these things make up your identity and they become a sense of safety. They give you a sense of self. And so I think just the general awareness of how it could feel like a personal attack because it's an identity that differs from yours.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're less you.
Yes.
Because someone disagrees with you, but it may certainly give you that trigger where you feel in your body because it is a hit on your safety. But just to bring awareness of that is what's happening.
Right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes even just knowing that, you can let it go easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicely said.
I thought that part was worth mentioning.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for adding that.
I think the one that stood out to me, I mean, there are a lot of good ones, but one that's specifically popping out is number 2, ask questions don't just make points. And I love this because I've, over the years, definitely adopted more and more curiosity. And I think, especially with these polarizing situations, people are ready to just jump and make points. Well, listen to this point and this point and this point and this point that I have. And another and it turns into like two people just shouting points at each other. And how is any understanding going to happen when it's like talking about the weather? Having a surface level conversation is just throwing points at one another.
Yeah.
Where when you actually show that curiosity, like you mentioned with the open-ended questions, what led you to feel that way?
Yeah.
How did you come to that conclusion? Is actually going to give you true understanding from where that person's coming from.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the biggest divide, is we just don't get where each other are coming from.
Exactly right.
So I really, really liked that point.
And I feel like that also helps you feel more empowered, and you don't feel like the political conversation is out of your hands, because you're actually participating in the ongoing conversation by staying curious about other people, rather than just being cynical and saying like all people in politics are evil, or this policy is not going to do anything for me, or whatever. Like, if you're like cynical, it can like close off all of your hope, all of your connection with other people. And I feel like curiosity is kind of an antidote to that.
Definitely.
Such a great point.
Yeah. But I also think it's going to make that person feel like you are interested in more than just making your point. Like, oh, you want to know why I feel this way? You want to know what led me to this? Okay, cool. And it just releases something.
Yeah.
And I think it leads to that actual human connection more.
Yep. There you go.
Right? Because if person A is actually sharing what led them to feel that way, person B is going to start understanding more of their humanity naturally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, beautiful point. I really liked that one.
You know what I just thought of?
Share. It's been really fun, your imagery today. I'm not sure, but
I know.
Okay, I have two things. But first is like, when I think about like, just share your point. I'm sharing this just to throw at you, and like the other person's not listening. I imagine like two sides of a war, and they're like shooting bows and arrows, and or like they're shooting arrows, and the arrows are like the points. I'm like, take this, and the people are like, okay, but they have their shields, and they're like, take this arrow, and they're like shooting the arrows back, but no one's actually listening to each other's point. They're just like shielding the points, and they're like, but listen to this, and
I like it.
Nothing's actually going.
Good
there.
imagery.
Nothing's penetrating. Yes, our imagery is so fun today. Yeah, but nothing is penetrating. Yeah, very good. I like that visual.
But then the imagery changed. I feel like the point that we're trying to make is like, what if both opposing parties were behind the arrow and saying, look and see where this arrow goes when I shoot it. And then you hand it over to them, and they're like, look and see where this arrow goes when I shoot it. And like, you're both like giving it the time of day, and like both watching where the arrow is going. AKA like, I'm really hearing your point out, and I'm seeing like where you're coming from and like your whole stance. And that reminded me of the second thing, which was a quote that Lauren shared with me a long time ago. And that is, it was relationship advice, actually. Like,
throwback. Let's go.
The relationship advice was, whenever you are experiencing an issue, an argument, or a disagreement with your significant other, always take a step back and remember that it's you two in love against the problem, not you two against each other. And I feel like that is so relatable to just human connection and like this whole topic as well.
Yeah, so good.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So there you have it, friends. Some tips to handle people with different opinions. I think especially if the relationship is a long-term one, family, coworkers, in-laws, remember, you don't have to agree on everything to love or respect someone.
Yeah.
Now, before we go, I will post a link in the description to what I'm about to talk about. And I'm not sure if people will find this video to be crazy or insane or ridiculous, but I'm sharing the link anyway. And it's regarding Charlie Kirk. But a little background, it's from the creator of spirit science. He goes by Jordan River, also known as Jordan Duknich. And for those who don't know, Jordan founded Spirit Science, which is a content project. He created animated videos to educate and bridge the gap between spirit, the metaphysical, spirituality, and science. His main character is called Patchman, and he's a very cute little blue guy with patches, and the videos are very colorful and understandable, and I think they're very well done. I've actually watched those videos on and off for probably 12 years now.
Oh, wow.
And I think they've been around for something like 13 plus, but I'd never watched Jordan's personal content. So anyway, back to this particular video. Jordan claims Charlie Kirk came to visit him. That's right, not before he died, but his soul, his spirit, his ghost. And you can see Jordan's honesty in the video and him assessing his own sanity in the video, as well as making it very clear that he's not attempting to make anyone believe him and that it could very well be his own consciousness experiencing something that is making it seem like Charlie Kirk's spirit. But he's sharing the message regardless of even his own questioning. So some big takeaways that according to him are from Charlie Kirk's spirit is that Charlie was impressed by Jordan's impact on the light of the souls of the world. Charlie realized while on the other side that the impact he was having was not as impactful as he wanted it to be. Oftentimes his dialogues or debates and his whole thing was having fights with people and challenging people, and it was very conflicting in its nature. He was amazed by Jordan's energy being more about lifting the light of the souls from within, rather than this whole I'm right and you're wrong sort of thing. He says, with what Charlie knows now, being in the afterlife, he may not have taken such a hard stance on some of his views. Quote, that there was a higher truth that was available, and if he had access to that information beforehand, some of the things that he stood for or talked about would have actually been different. And that says a lot because one thing Charlie Kirk had was conviction of his beliefs. If you can't give the guy anything, you gotta give him that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That it's profound that his transition over was that profound to where he would have lifted some of those.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing. But above all, Charlie Kirk says the afterlife is beautiful. And several other things. So click the link in the description. I don't want to ruin it for you. Whether you believe this stuff or not, check out Jordan's experience if you want to know what else Charlie saw. With all that's been said today, what I want our audience to take away the most is you don't have to agree on everything to love or respect someone. Once again, you don't have to agree on everything to love or respect someone. Until we meet again, besties, keep growing, keep glowing, and always trust in your own bestie perspective.